Hello, welcome inside the Hera Press Box. A week later, we are back. We did not have an episode Sunday, but here we are. And then last Thursday, we did sort of a real quick recap during halftime of that USWNT game. They are playing again tonight. They are up 1-0 after the goal from the best player on the team,
Yeah,
apparently,
yeah,
Megan Rapinoe. Only person that can do hardly
pretty
anything
much
right.
anything.
Yeah, with any sort of consistency.
Right. There we go. That's a good point. Any sort of consistency.
Yeah. So that's the game is about to go into halftime. We'll probably go over that a little bit. We'll talk some about that team. I don't think this is going to be a normal 45 minute episode, but we'll see how much I get into my predictions as far as collegiate soccer goes. And Alyssa has finished a book recently, read it in a day, and maybe we can start with that if you want
You want me to start with
to talk a
that?
little bit about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do that.
So it's Kate Fagan's book called What Made Maddie Run. Madison Holleran was a freshman at Penn who ended up taking her own life. It pretty much just goes over her story, but Kate did it in such a way that was eloquent and didn't solely focus on the fact of her act of suicide, which I thought was key in telling her story. And about a week or so ago, so it came out on the first, was like the first day that it was available. So about a week ago, Monday, I was just like, there's something in me that needs, I think like I need to read this book. I think I need to get it for whatever reason, I needed to get it. And it was crazy. It's kind of one of those books that essentially kind of makes you look at yourself and say, hey, first off, where are you mentally in your life right now? And second off, what can you do for other people? And she threw some statistics in there as well, as far as mental health goes. And it was kind of crazy, just what happens. And it was like, oh my gosh, were my friends going through this in college and I just didn't realize it? Were other people that I was semi close with in college going through all of this and I didn't realize it? So it really opened up my mind. And it's not just a book for people who are interested in sports or necessarily mental health. I think she covers all bases of who she's targeting with this book. And it really just focuses on the fact of we all have different experiences, whether it's with being just a college student or a college or student athlete or just in person in general. It's really one of those books that is like, you really don't know what's going on with someone. And social media played a lot into that as well. And when Madison Holleran's story first kind of like broke, I guess, however you really want to call that, or first came about, Kate ended up writing this article. I do believe it was called Split Image, of what you portray on social media is completely different than what could be going on in your life at the current moment. And social media allows that to happen. You have this outlet where you can just pretend that you're happy. And she clearly wasn't happy. And it's all about, being able to read someone, which is really difficult if you don't know them, especially with Madison, who, went to a different town. All of her college friends didn't know her in high school, so they didn't know what she was like beforehand. And it was a little bit scary too, because Maddie was really excited about going to college and always wanted to be at college, and that's how I was. From when I can remember, I always wanted to be in college. I just wish I could skip everything and just go right to college. And so I couldn't have imagined getting to college and it just being an extreme letdown. Obviously, I didn't have that during my college years. I couldn't even imagine someone having a bad time at UW Madison. Like, how can you have a bad time at UW Madison? What are you talking about? We have great athletics, great academics. How could you not have a good time? And I didn't understand people who transferred. Like, why are you transferring? This is a great school. If you didn't know that the academics were difficult, then you should have thought about that beforehand. And it obviously that may be part of the reason, or they're simply just not happy. They're physically not where they're at mentally. So it really just opened up my eyes to the daily struggles of mental health. I'd always had some knowledge about it, but it was never like, oh my gosh, here's this girl who was, we're pretty much going through college at the same time. I'm probably maybe 2 years older than her. I might be completely off on that, but she had a completely different college experience than I did. And it may have been because there was just so much pressure on her for being a student athlete, but I don't think that was necessarily the case. It would be kind of one of those things where you're like, well, what if she was just kind of like a quote unquote normal student where she didn't have to worry about track, she didn't have to worry about cross country, and that's what she thought was essentially making her sad and making her not happy. But clearly there was a level underneath that which people didn't, whether they didn't want to accept it or they just didn't see it, type of thing. I don't really know. But now it's like, oh my goodness, so if someone says they're not happy at college, is it because of the university itself? Is it because of their major? Is it because of the classes they're taking? Is it because they haven't decided on a major yet? What's the issue? Or are they legitimately overall unhappy with where they're at? They're feeling different. I think the difficult thing with Madison's story is that she didn't know how to put into words how she was feeling. And that's really a difficult thing to do in general. And I think Kate did a great job of being able to put it into words and say not necessarily directly how she was feeling, but that it just, everything was off. At school, she was off. She would go home. She was off. She wasn't her. And there's really no way to describe that besides of the fact that she just wasn't her. And so I think people didn't realize that as some sort of, this is way deeper than she's just unhappy at school. So it just was, it's a life book pretty much, just to say, hey, this is what happens. This isn't just happening in college students. This just isn't happening in student athletes. This is happening to kind of your average Joe, I guess, that they may not all have this great mental health aspect. And it's something that we clearly take for granted.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just, I mean, Kate did an amazing job. I mean, I literally read the book in one night. So it was, I could not put the book down, even though I knew what the ending was. I knew the story. I had followed it when, it was on ESPN and on nationwide news. So I knew what happened. I still sat in one sitting and read the book. So it just says something about Kate Fagan and how she was able to articulate all of those things.
Mm-hmm. So is Fagan writing that from a sort of a meta-analysis, getting in all these reports, or is she reporting? Is she interviewing people? Where does she come from perspective wise? Who's quoted in the book?
So she uses a lot of the Halloran family gave her access to Madison's computer and phone, pretty much anything that she had, they gave her access to. So she was able to use text messages that were sent, which was, most of them were like, I'm thinking about quitting track, and people were like, oh, why are you quitting track? Or, that might be your best option to quit track, and all that kind of interaction. And she was able, I wouldn't say it was like an interview, but she was able to put in quotes from friends and family and integrate them into a system, or a story, I should say. It was a story. That's pretty much what it was. She just told her story. And it was from being able to have access to all of the things that the Halloran family gave to her, and having access to them as well, and being able to get their perspective on things, as well as her close friends from college and high school. And she kind of throws in, so Kate played basketball at Colorado. So she kind of threw in there, I think it was her freshman year, or think she redshirted her freshman year, so freshman year as far as eligibility goes, where she was pretty much on the verge of quitting herself, and she was able to have, if it was a coach or a trainer there, who pretty much, said, hey, you need to go see someone. This isn't just, you're having a bad day type of thing, or you got a bad grade on a test. This is something going on with your brain that you can't control. And I think that's the difficulty with mental health is, again, I've mentioned this. If I haven't mentioned this on here, I've mentioned it in conversations between us off of here. Unless it directly affects you, unless you can directly see the effects of it happening, it doesn't bother you. You don't think about it. You don't think about it twice, type of thing. And so I think that's really what connected essentially Kate in a way. But I think, and she kind of described it in the beginning, it was a chance for her to show something. It was a chance for her to do something different. It was to shine a light on mental health and what it can do and what it can be to a person, just beyond, oh my goodness, I'm having a bad day, or I turned the ball over 5 times and I only had 2 assists, so my assist to turnover ratio is crap, type of thing. And Kate was able to find help because she had someone that she could lean on and who understood essentially where she was coming from. And I don't mean to place blame, but it didn't seem like Madison had that. And that's just simply because, how are you supposed to know that? How are you supposed to see the signs of that? Coaches and trainers, they're not trained to see the mental health side of things. They're trained to see the physical side of things, really. I mean, if you're ready to go physically, then why aren't you out on the court? Why aren't you out on the field, type of thing? So it really emphasizes the fact that colleges and in general need to do a better job at, first off, talking about mental health, because we see it as a weakness. That's just how it is. That's how we see it. I mean, it's a default type of thing, when it's really not. I mean, there's really nothing you can do about it. It's like a broken ankle. If you have a broken ankle, you're going to not do anything about it, then it's going to heal incorrectly and you're going to forever have a messed up ankle. But the difference is that you can see a broken ankle. Can't see someone's brain. You can't see the chemicals that are going on inside of them. So it's just a difficult thing for people to fully grasp what is going on.
Yeah, so it's a test to, well, I guess how great Fagan is, and then Fagan's coach, and those coaches that that are not afraid to say something, to ask or make a comment. And it's sort of a I don't know, it's kind of an odd thing, and to dumb it down even more, it's kind of like the whole thing where, say you're eating lunch with somebody and you don't know them very well, so you don't tell them they have a piece of food stuck on their cheek or on their chin, right? But if you the more you know somebody, the more comfortable you are saying something. But that's not an excuse really to not just say something. And and that's how everybody is. I don't, it's and that's just how it goes for some reason. When it would be a lot easier to make comments.
And mental health is such a delicate issue, in the sense of, again, what you just said. People are afraid to talk about it, especially on the male side of things. You're supposed to be able to push through it. You're supposed to be able to fight through it. You should have the mental toughness if you're an athlete, no matter male or female, to fight through it. I mean, you're an athlete. What are you talking about?
No.
You're thinking about suicide, or you're thinking about how you don't want to live anymore. Like, what are you talking about? Type of thing. And so I think people are so afraid. And this was brought up too in the book, just for, I think, just a little bit of, they were afraid to essentially bring up suicide, because is that going to bring up in her mind? Because what if it wasn't in her mind? Yep. What if suicide wasn't in her mind? It would be like, oh, someone just asked me about suicide. And is that where I'm at? Is that what, like, kind of essentially next step is? Like, am I that bad mentally, that's the next step. So it's just kind of forcing people. I think it's forcing people to have a conversation. I mean, we're having a conversation right now. I mean, I'm mostly talking, so not necessarily a conversation, but I'm talking about it. So I think it's just forcing people to say, hey, this is an issue. This is a problem that we need to do more about. Clearly, we need to do more about. Because it's not just Madison Holleran. Penn, she brought up statistics, and I should have highlighted and written all this stuff down, but they've had a crazy amount of suicides happen in their students. So it's a combination of that it's Ivy League. And then if you're a student athlete, and that brings up a whole other question and whole other issue of, is the student athlete essentially working for the university? Should they be getting paid? Should they be able to do anything, that they want? And that's a whole separate issue. But I think it's a valid point to bring up if they're a student athlete, in the sense of they're pretty much making money for the university. So should they be being compensated for that? I mean, they really don't have any time outside of classwork and practice. I mean, you have morning practice, you have afternoon practice, you have weightlifting sessions, and then, oh, hey, guess what? You also have to go to class within that same day. And oh my gosh, you have finals coming up, and hey, you've got a 20-page paper due in 2 weeks, type of thing. So I don't want to say necessarily added stress if you're a student athlete, if you love your sport and you ended up being able to adapt easily into high school and college, but it's just a whole different ball game in college than it is in high school. So how do you prepare one for that? How do you go through that mentally? How do you go through that physically? Because, you're doing 2-a-days for 2 weeks, and then you got class on top of that. So how do you really prepare someone for that? I think it's a matter of universities taking it on a serious basis, and in general, the population, obviously, globally, taking it seriously as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's really all I had to say. I've spoken enough about that.
No,
you
were fine,
worried.
man. No, that's cool. You read it. That sounds like a good book. Great book, actually, right? And one that you would recommend.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, good recap. So, and we'd kind of plan about you talking about that, and then I would talk about my predictions for college soccer. So it works out well.
Mm-hmm.
Just jump right into that, and I don't anticipate you having a lot to say or me letting you say a lot. But the format I was going to run through these predictions on was, so I have a top 25. I have actually a top 46. So 46 teams I thought were even in consideration for the top 25. So they're all ranked. Big conferences. I have their championship team, and then I have it broken down into Sweet 16 down to the championship match.
Oh,
so
you did your homework.
What I will do, I don't think you expected anything less.
No, I didn't actually.
What I will do is I'll run through the teams starting with the Sweet 16. So teams that get to the Sweet 16 but lose that match.
Okay.
So you'll get 8 teams here. Yep. These 8 teams get to the Sweet 16 but lose.
Okay.
Starting with West Virginia.
Oof,
they bring back their leading goal scorer, Michaela Baum, and Shania Gordon is back as well. Riley Foster, who had a goals against average under a goal per game as a freshman last year. And they do not have a standout incoming class, and they could be thin on the back line aside from Bianca St. George, who was injured for 75% of last season. So they'll definitely need her to be healthy, I think, to even get to that point.
Right.
But with Gordon and a bomb up top, I'll watch them no matter what with those two in charge. Next team is from the Big Ten, Michigan. Decent goalie in Sarah Jackson, but maybe the best attack in the conference, Riley Martin and Ani Sarkeesian up top. Jada Dane, the son of Rondane returns after a solid freshman campaign.
That's a little rude. You couldn't pull that one?
It came down between Michigan and Wisconsin.
Come on, Paula.
UCLA makes it to the Sweet 16, gets beat.
They don't have Mal.
Nope. Their website has finally added Ashley Sanchez to the roster, though. I was starting to become very worried. And I didn't freak out. I was patient, but Sanchez's name is on the roster. Tegan Mika was under 1 goals against average last season and returns in goal for the Bruins. Jesse Fleming will have something to say about Sanchez being their star on that team, along with 3 incoming 4-star freshmen and 3 seniors on the back line from UCLA. Out of the SEC, Arkansas, questions in net may hold back an offense that returns a majority of its firepower. Now with the aid of incoming freshman Parker Goins, who you should keep an eye on. Parker Goins from Arkansas. Loyola Marymount to the Sweet 16. Out of a top-heavy WCC, the Lions have Charlie Pruitt, who went through a bit of a sophomore slump in net, and they also have an offense that returns 32 of their 37 goals from a season ago. Second Big Ten team that I'll mention is Wisconsin. Another season of waiting for a breakout forward for the Badgers. They'll rely on a top 3 goalie in the nation, Caitlin Clem, and the return of Victoria Pickett after her time with the Canadian under-23 team. Freshman Gabrielle Lawlor and Cami Murtha will see playing time for the Badgers. Utah to the Sweet 16. Explosive forward Haley Skolmoski will compete for Player of the Year as a junior on the Utes, and a tandem of goalies who only ceded 15 goals last season are back. Seniors Vukic and Curl have the experience of all 22 games played last season with a Sweet 16 appearance for Utah as they get back there. A surprise pick for my Sweet 16 was the team from Stetson. Goalie Emily Plotz returns after securing the starting job and an all-freshman team selection. And then senior forward Sarah Collins is up top after scoring 13 last year and will get help from Suarez and Parent on that Stetson squad. Now teams that advance to the Elite 8 before getting knocked out. First off, my pick last year to win the championship, the Duke Blue Devils. Probably better than the Final Four squad last year. I don't know if I'm holding a grudge. I assume they just run into somebody that has a better game than them. Duke does bring in an impressive freshman class, and I do not see this team struggling to fill the shoes of now gone Tony Payne and Christina Gibbons. From the Big Ten, one of 2 teams that get to the Elite 8 is Penn State. Back to the top of the conference, Brittany Basinger is the top defender in the nation, in my mind. Megan Schaefer will be the next Nittany Lion forward drafted, and Amanda Dennis has a chance to be goalie of the year. But she'll have to be goalie of the conference first, and then add a typical Penn State recruiting class to that mix. That Amanda Dennis, a freshman last year, incredibly impressive. And I like to take some credit for that, as that was one of my predictions I made before the season started last year. South Carolina, another standout freshman goalkeeper is on this squad. She returns for the Gamecocks, as does Savannah McCaskill, who I'm not a big fan of, but who will be a popular pick for Player of the Year in the nation. Northwestern is the second Big Ten team to the Elite 8. 2B Big Ten Goalie of the Year, Lauren Clem. She'll try to match her .29 goals against average from a season ago. And with the Wildcats bringing back their 4 top goal scorers and utilizing 7 seniors, Northwestern finds themselves in the Elite 8 after their Sweet 16 run last season.
What year is Clem?
She is a senior.
Oh, okay.
She redshirted 1 year, right? Yeah. I think one of the Caitlin or Lauren redshirted. They are cousins. Those 2 are.
Okay.
To the Final Four. I would say both of these next 2 teams are bit of surprises as well. First pick is SMU. Last year, they were knocked out in the first round. The Mustangs returned their goalie and top 3 goal scorers, who combined for 29 goals between the 3 of them. 6 players started every match for them last season. Well, there are 6 players returning that started every match for them last season. The other pick to get to the Final Four are the Hurricanes of Miami. After a solid sophomore campaign, the goalie, Tulis Joyce, takes the next step, I believe, as does senior Ronnie Johnson, who is poised to double her scoring from last season and is my favorite to win Player of the Year on the Hurricanes. And I believe, rising coach Mary Frances Monroe takes the Hurricanes to the Final Four after missing the tournament completely last season. The final matchup, championship matchup, getting beat runner-up for next season is the Stanford Cardinal. Absolutely incredible freshman class, delivering 3 5-star recruits and 4 4-star recruits. I see them growing up early under the wings of Andy Sullivan. And whoever wins the job in net to be the next Jane Campbell, I think they'll be sufficient enough for this offense to work and get them as far as I have them going. But they will get beat by the hands-down favorite for the season, no questions asked, the Florida State Seminoles, who return senior goalie Cassie Miller, Megan Connolly, Venezuelan star Dana Castellanos, and their revenge on the mind after a second-round exit last season. So, top 25 other teams. I'll just run through my top 25 there. I mean, I had a handful of teams that didn't make it. So up top, I have Florida State, then Stanford, Duke at 3, Penn State, the first Big Ten team, at 4, South Carolina and McCaskill at 5, West Virginia at 6, the Wildcats and Northwestern at 7, those SMU Mustangs at 8, then North Carolina and Michigan round out the top 10. UCLA at 11, UConn without Rachel Hill at 12, Georgetown at 13, which with only 1 Corbos now, Auburn out of the SEC at 14, South Alabama USA at 15, Arkansas 16, Miami at 17, OK State 18, Loyola Marymount, who I had in Sweet 16 at 19, and Final 5, California, BYU, Notre Dame, Wisconsin, Florida, and Utah.
So you got us at 24.
23.
23? Okay, sorry.
Yep.
So you got us at 23 and making it to the Sweet 16. So
right.
That makes some sense. Okay. So you're hoping for a good year. You would say losing in the Sweet 16 is a good year for us.
That's an incredible year, yeah.
Okay.
I would say, okay, so Big Ten standings.
Mm-hmm.
Penn State, Northwestern, Michigan, and then Wisconsin. And then Nebraska. So Nebraska's sort of on the line as far as really good teams to mediocre teams. Rutgers, Minnesota, and Ohio State is who I have next, kind of on the bubble. Those will be your 8 qualifying teams for the Big Ten tournament.
Right.
Yeah, and if you're a top 4 team in that conference, you should be in. But there was a team a few years ago who was actually tied for the conference championship and didn't get in. So I won't hold my breath to that.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say, and I'm someone who doesn't know a lot about collegiate soccer. I'm hoping to change that this year. You should be proud that I'm hoping to change that this year. But the fact that either you're being completely optimistic about UW's season, or you know what you're talking about, or both. The fact that you have us ranked 23rd and then we're going to make it to the Sweet 16. Who do you have us losing to? Have you figured that out, or are you just like?
No, I didn't make a bracket.
Okay.
But the teams that I have advanced.
Right.
Yeah, because
we probably end up playing Stanford just cause, and just get annihilated.
I could see Florida State being a 6-0. Meaning
Yeah.
Wisconsin 6-0.
I mean,
Same for
Stanford
Duke.
could be 6-0.
Same for Penn State. Same for South Carolina. Northwestern would have a shot, but Wisconsin's probably not going to score.
But we have the better Clem, right?
No. Yeah, so Chris Henderson is making his predictions now. He's going conference by conference, and he started with the smaller conferences.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
Nothing is conflicting as of now. We will see where he goes with his predictions.
He said he was taking a break to watch this U.S. game, which, like I said before we started this, is essentially a friendly at this point because Australia already won the tournament.
Yep.
Which is to be expected.
As far as
they deserve to win it.
Best going in the tournament. Yeah. So anyway, as far as Wisconsin soccer goes, I'm sure. Season starts in 2 weeks now.
2 weeks, yeah.
So I'd imagine once we get a little closer, I might run through a little bit more in detail what I'm thinking as far as the Wisconsin season goes.
So you'd say you have pretty high expectations for us this season?
I mean, not really. I don't know. That's where our program's at.
Right.
We're a Sweet 16 round of 32 team.
Right.
So I think that's expected as of now. I mean, if Wilkins can only get them to the first round or second round the next 3 years, he's probably on the hot seat. It's because of how that athletic organization has worked, where if you don't win championships, you get ousted, sometimes for no reason at all, if you're a good coach and it just doesn't work out. But
and it's quite the opposite in basketball, isn't it?
What's that?
If you're winning and you're at least trying to turn the program around and doing well, you get canned. And
right.
If you have an under 500 season for 4 years, you get to stick around for 4 years.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's true.
Finally get to get canned on your 5th.
Yeah, well, that happens when you do what I was talking about, where a coach gets your team to the NCAA tournament every year, and then you get rid of her because you want more.
Mm-hmm.
Be careful what you wish for.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I blame Barry.
So anyway, we are at 34 minutes now as watch the game very closely because something is about to happen.
Okay, come on.
That is it from me. If you have anything you want to add.
I'm just 2 minutes behind because I'm watching on my iPad, so I don't appreciate the heads up on whatever's going to happen. I'm assuming we score, though, since you said it. I'd just like to point out the fact that Allie Krieger has not been inserted in any of these games at any point. She's at 98 caps. She could have had 100, but at least from what I'm seeing, she's not in the game. She may be in the game now, but I doubt it.
Maybe she's going to get 100 caps in Cincinnati.
Ooh, don't tease me like that because I want to go to that game. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Jill Ellis discussion we've already kind of had, and it's been pretty amplified on the Twitter feeds of those that the Hera Press Box follows, that either she needs to get going or change up what she's doing, because it's clearly whatever she's doing ain't working, given that we just scored.
Yeah, I think that will be one of the bigger storylines I try to follow this women's college season, to see what coach kind of throws his or her hat in the fire, hopefully. Hat in the ring, hopefully.
Right. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, I know we kind of talked about this, and I had tweeted about it on Hera Press Box, that last game Foudy was talking about how Jill Ellis said she's coaching for 2019, but in the process, you don't want to be losing the team. And given last game helped, in this game, I mean, we're up 2-0 now, and that's going to help. And essentially, it's going to keep her with where she's at, right? I mean, the team is essentially, the default is keeping her because we turned it around, which has its ups and downs, and it's good and it's bad. And I understand that she's coaching for 2019, but clearly what she was doing, winning a World Cup, worked. I can understand fine-tuning some things, but I don't think putting Sauerbrunn in midfield is really one of those things.
Right, I agree.
Not playing Ellie Krieger is one of those things. But, it's just an opinion of one.
Yep.
That's for a later discussion, though. I can go on and on about that.
Yep. I agree. Same here. But I'm sure, we'll talk about that as the summer comes to a close.
One last thing about soccer, about U.S. soccer.
Mm-hmm.
Scurry got inducted, I do believe, into the Hall of Fame.
Good.
Yeah. And
about time the best goalie in the history gets inducted.
Come on now. Come on. I wouldn't say that, though.
Never seen Hope Solo in backyard soccer.
Oh, I've never seen Hope Solo. It's because whatever.
You can quote me on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Quote me on the fact that we have a goalie who plays with one good shoulder for as long as she did. And you can get back to me.
She's weak?
No. Whatever. Greg Ryan didn't know
That's what I heard.
What he was doing.
What?
That's all. Nothing. Nothing.
That's what I heard. Okay. As Lindsay Horan is coming into the game, I believe we're ready to wrap up.
Yes.
Okay. And we'll, I think, have an episode Sunday evening. I think so. Yeah, as long as I'm not out of town again. But
yeah, on a business trip.
On a business trip for the third weekend in a row.
Yeah.
But that is it from us. Thanks for stopping by the Hera Press Box.